For most of sailing history, you had to make a brutal choice. You could have a boat built like a tank, heavy, overbuilt, indestructible, that would survive anything the ocean threw at it, or you could have a boat that actually sailed well, that was fast, responsive, and a joy to steer. You could not have both. A tough boat was a slow boat. A fast boat was a fragile boat. That was simply the law of the sea, and every sailor accepted it. But over the last decade, something remarkable has happened. A handful of brilliant boatyards scattered across France, South Africa, and beyond have shattered that old compromise completely. They have built a new generation of catamarans that are, somehow, both at once. They did it with new materials, with computer-designed structures, with aerospace techniques, and with hard lessons learned from ocean racing, where boats are pushed to the absolute limit and failure is not an option. Boats with hulls so strong they can slam into a reef or push through floating ice and shrug it off. And yet boats so fast and so beautifully balanced that they can outrun a storm and surf down ocean waves at 20 knots. Built like tanks, and yet they sail like thoroughbreds. Today, I am counting down the 10 greatest examples of this new breed, the 10 catamarans that are built like tanks and sail like it too. These are not the cheap production boats you see lined up in every charter base. These are the serious machines, the ones engineered for couples and families who actually want to cross oceans, reach the most remote corners of the planet, from tropical lagoons to ice-strewn polar bays, and come home safely, no matter what the sea decides to do to them along the way. Every one of them represents a different answer to the same question. How do you build a boat strong enough to survive anything without making it too heavy to sail? And the answers these 10 boats have found are genuinely fascinating. So let's count them down, from number 10 all the way to the single toughest, most capable catamaran on the water today. Number 10, the St. Francis 500. We begin in South Africa, a country that, because of the brutal seas around its coast, has quietly become one of the great breeding grounds for tough, ocean-ready catamarans. The St. Francis 500 is the archetype of the rational, no-nonsense, long-distance cruiser. There is nothing flashy about it, and that is exactly the point. It is built using vacuum-infused construction over a foam core, with carbon fiber reinforcement added precisely at the points of highest load, giving it real strength without unnecessary weight. But the St. Francis makes a very deliberate, very smart choice. Instead of the complicated retractable daggerboards that performance cats use, it sticks with simple, strong, fixed keels. And those keels are shaped to do something crucial. They protect the propellers and the rudders. If you run aground or strike something in the water, the keels take the hit first, sacrificing themselves to save the vital steering and propulsion underneath. It is a boat designed by people who clearly understood that far from help, simplicity is survival. A boat with fewer moving parts is a boat with fewer things that can fail at the worst possible moment, and the St. Francis embraces that wisdom completely. And despite all that toughness, it is no slug. At under 14 tons, it is surprisingly light for such a solid boat and capable of holding steady 200-mile days across an ocean. It was drawn by respected naval architects who refined the hull over decades of real ocean feedback, and its deep practical storage and clever lifting beam for the dinghy show a boat designed by people who have actually lived aboard and crossed oceans, where every detail serves a real purpose. The St. Francis 500 earns its place because it proves the foundational truth of this entire list. You do not need to be exotic to be tough. You just need to be built with intelligence and a deep respect for the sea. Number 9. Privilege Signature 510. Now we move to France and to a boat with one of the most distinctive structural secrets in the entire catamaran world. The Privilege Signature 510 is heavy, robust, and built to carry an enormous load without ever straining, and its strength comes from a single, brilliant piece of engineering. Look at the front of this boat, and you will see a structure that most catamarans do not have: a central beam, a kind of spar that extends forward between the two hulls. Privilege calls it their signature feature, and it is far more than decoration. That central structure acts like the backbone of the entire boat, locking the two hulls together and preventing the diagonal twisting, the racking that asymmetric waves try to inflict on every multi-hull. While other boats rely entirely on the cross structure to resist that twisting, the Privilege adds this powerful longitudinal spine, making the whole platform extraordinarily rigid. It is reinforced heavily with carbon in the critical areas, and it carries an oversized, beefed-up mast and rig. The result is a boat that feels utterly solid. That central spine lets it carry an enormous beam, nearly 8 meters wide, opening up a vast owner's cabin and a volume that is almost unheard of on a boat this size. It can carry 6 tons of payload without sinking onto its lines, which means you can load it with everything a family needs for years of cruising, and it will still float properly and sail well. It gives its crew the deep confidence that comes from standing on a genuinely unbreakable platform, one that simply refuses to twist or flex no matter how confused the sea becomes. The Privilege Signature 510 makes the list because it solves the catamaran's greatest structural enemy, twisting, with a piece of engineering that is uniquely, recognizably its own. Number 8. Exquisite X5 Plus. The brand even became known for an extraordinary promise, sailing alongside new owners on their first real passages to make absolutely sure the boat and crew were truly ready for the ocean. This is toughness reimagined for the modern age, where the electrical system and the water maker and the autopilot matter just as much as the thickness of the hull. And the bigger sister, the 60 solar sail, takes this even further, a near-silent, solar-powered ocean crosser that can run its systems for days on sunshine alone. The Exquisite earns its place because it understands that real reliability, far from land, means building a boat where nothing is left to chance. Number 7. Katana 53. The Katana 53. Now we come to a true veteran of the Bluewater world, a name that has been building serious, fast, ocean-going catamarans in France for decades. The Katana 53 is instantly recognizable, with its sharp, knife-like reverse bows and its high vertical sides, a shape designed to slice through waves rather than ride over them. But beneath that sleek skin is a genuinely tough boat. Katana builds the 53 with extensive carbon fiber reinforcement wrapped around every high-load area. The chain plates, the forward beam, the base of the mast, all the places where the ocean tries hardest to tear a boat apart. And here's what the testers consistently report, which tells you everything. When a violent gust hits the Katana 53, the boat does not groan, it does not flex, and it does not dangerously round up into the wind. The structure simply absorbs the load, and the boat accelerates cleanly forward, surging ahead on a rail. That is the signature of a stiff, strong hull, a boat that turns the ocean's violence into forward speed instead of structural stress. And it is exactly what you want underneath you when the weather turns serious. Katana builds the hull using an infusion process with light, rigid foam, and that careful optimization shed nearly a ton of weight compared to the boat's predecessor, bringing it down to around 14 tons while actually making it stronger. Its signature curved dagger boards cut sideways, slipping to almost nothing while adding a touch of lift that eases the load on the leeward hull. And the whole boat behaves, in the words of one reviewer, like a disciplined thoroughbred, powerful but never out of control. The Katana 53 makes the list because it has decades of hard ocean miles behind its reputation, and because it proves that a boat can be razor-sharp and bulletproof at the same time. And if you are starting to see the real engineering that separates a genuine ocean boat from a pretty boat that just looks the part at the dock, the reinforced load points, the crash boxes, the watertight bulkheads, that is exactly the knowledge I poured into the Bluewater Buyer's Manual. The whole book is about learning to recognize true offshore strength so you can tell the difference between a boat that will keep you safe 1,000 miles from land and one that will let you down. The full link is in the description below. Number 6. Outremer 45. The Outremer 45. Now we arrive at one of the most respected names in all of blue water sailing, and a boat that embodies a fascinating philosophy, that speed itself is a form of safety. The Outremer 45 is light, narrow, and fast, but do not mistake light for fragile, because Outremer has made some very clever, very deliberate choices about where to add strength. The hulls are a foam core composite, but crucially, the entire bottom of each hull, everything below the waterline, is built from solid, monolithic fiberglass. Outremer deliberately accepts a little extra weight down there in exchange for something priceless, near total resistance to puncture if the boat ever strikes a reef or a submerged object. The bows contain multiple crash boxes, sealed compartments that keep the boat afloat even after a serious impact, and the main bulkheads are massively reinforced with carbon fiber inserts. So the Outremer's logic is beautiful and worth understanding because it is the philosophy behind half the boats on this list. Be light enough to sail fast and outrun bad weather, to dodge the dangerous systems and spend less time exposed on the open ocean. That is your active safety. But armor the one area, the bottom of the hull, where an impact would be catastrophic and unsurvivable. That is your passive safety. Speed to avoid the danger, and strength to survive it if it finds you anyway. At a light displacement of well under 9 tons, narrow in the hull and slender in the bow, it slips through the water where heavier boats have to shove, and it ghosts along in light air when other cruisers are stuck motoring. The result is a boat that gives its helmsman direct, tactile feedback through carbon tiller steering from bucket seats out on the side decks, a boat you can genuinely feel through your hands, that is famous as one of the few catamarans a single sailor can safely and joyfully handle alone, and that has carried sailors safely around the entire planet. The Outremer 45 earns its place because it proves that being fast and being safe are not opposites, they are partners. Number 5. The Outremer 52. If the 45 is the pure, nimble sailor's boat, the Outremer 52 is its more sophisticated, more powerful big sister, and it carries an incredible pedigree. It is the successor to a legendary model whose fleet collectively sailed more than 2 million ocean miles, a staggering record of real-world toughness and reliability. The 52 takes everything that made its predecessor great and pushes it further, using advanced construction techniques borrowed from the high-performance gunboat yard within the same group. By laminating the main structural bulkheads directly from carbon fiber, the engineers saved nearly an entire ton of weight in the structure alone. And here's the clever part. They did not just pocket that saving as raw speed. They reinvested that saved weight into things that make the boat safer and more comfortable for long ocean passages. Bigger windows for visibility, more comfort systems, more capability, all without making the boat any heavier than it needed to be. Its wave-piercing reverse bows knife through head seas instead of climbing over them, which means less pitching, less slamming, and far less fatigue for the off-watch crew trying to sleep. Its straight dagger boards let it point remarkably high, sailing within 40 degrees of the apparent wind with almost no sideways slipping, which is genuinely rare for a loaded cruising catamaran. And its swing helm pivots smoothly so the crew can stand for a clear view in harbor, sit outside in fair weather, or tuck fully into the shelter of the cockpit for a cold, wet night watch, preserving their warmth and their alertness when it matters most. In testing, this big, comfortable, ocean-ready cruiser surfed at over 21 knots while still feeling utterly secure. The Outremer 52 earns its place because it represents the absolute refinement of the speed is safety philosophy. 2 million miles of hard-won knowledge poured into a single, beautifully balanced boat. Number 4. Kinetic KC-54. The Kinetic KC-54. Now we step into the world of the true carbon thoroughbreds, where no compromise is made for cost, only for strength and speed. The Kinetic KC-54, built in South Africa, is constructed entirely from pre-impregnated carbon fiber, vacuum-infused over a structural foam core, a method that produces a hull of staggering stiffness for a remarkably low weight. Owners who have crossed entire oceans on the Kinetic report something extraordinary. In 6-meter waves, the boat makes no structural noise at all. No creaking, no groaning, no flexing, just silence. The eerie, reassuring silence of a hull so rigid and so perfectly engineered that the full fury of the ocean cannot make it so much as creak. That stiffness is not just about comfort, it is about safety, because a hull that does not flex keeps its rig properly tensioned and its steering precise even in the worst conditions. The Kinetic also makes a brilliant safety choice with its appendages, using pivoting carbon centerboards instead of fixed dagger boards. If you strike something hard at speed, the board is designed to swing safely up and back into its housing rather than shattering or punching a hole in the hull. It is a deliberate, intelligent piece of risk management engineered by people who have thought hard about what actually goes wrong at sea. It even has a uniquely clever steering setup with 3 separate helm positions linked by a mechanical system that can disconnect the ones not in use, so the active helm feels pure and frictionless, giving the helmsman a direct racing car connection to the rudders. With Pacific crossing averages of 9 knots and surfs to 20, and owners reporting that the boat felt rock solid and silent through huge offshore seas, the Kinetic KC-54 is a genuine ocean predator that earns its place through sheer, uncompromising engineering excellence. Number 3. The HH-50 and HH-52. At number 3, we have what might be the most technologically advanced Bluewater catamarans on the entire planet. The HH-50 and its successor, the HH-52, are built by a team whose engineering pedigree comes directly from the very top of the racing world, and it shows in every detail. These boats are constructed from pre-impregnated carbon fiber that is then baked, cured in a giant industrial oven, a process that produces the absolute maximum strength and stiffness for the absolute minimum weight. These boats are constructed from pre-impregnated carbon fiber that is then baked, cured in a giant industrial oven, a process that produces the absolute maximum strength and stiffness for the absolute minimum weight. Even the interior furniture is made from carbon-skinned panels to save every possible gram. And then there is the feature that genuinely sounds like science fiction. The HH catamarans are fitted with sensors at the base of the rigging that constantly measure the load on the mast and the rig in real time. If a violent gust hits and the load spikes to a dangerous level, the boat's system can automatically release the mainsail sheet, instantly spilling the wind before the rig can be overloaded or the boat driven dangerously hard. It is an electronic guardian angel, watching the loads thousands of times a second, ready to protect the boat faster than any human could ever react, dumping the power in the sails before a deadly gust can drive the bows under or overload the rig. Nothing else on the water quite matches that level of automated, intelligent protection. The HH boats also feature watertight crash bulkheads up forward and isolated engine compartments aft, so a single hole in the wrong place can never sink the boat, along with 5-meter curved carbon dagger boards that generate real lift, raising the hull and reducing drag as speed builds. The newer HH-52 was rebuilt around a sophisticated hybrid propulsion system, pairing electric motors with reliable diesels and a large lithium battery bank, so the boat can motor silently out of an anchorage or regenerate its own electricity from the spinning propellers while sailing, recharging itself from the ocean as it goes. The HH-50 and HH-52 earn their place near the very top because they represent the cutting edge of what is possible, a fusion of brute structural strength and intelligent automated safety that simply did not exist a decade ago. Number 2. Balance 482. The Balance 482. In the number 2 spot is a boat that, in many ways, represents the perfect synthesis of everything on this list, the ideal balance, which is exactly what its name promises. The balance range was created with a clear philosophy, to refuse both extremes, not a stripped-out fragile racing machine, and not a heavy lumbering floating apartment, but a genuinely strong, genuinely fast ocean boat that a couple can actually handle and afford. The Balance 482 achieves this with a brilliant hybrid construction. Rather than using ruinously expensive carbon for the entire boat, Balance hand laminates the hulls in vacuum-infused fiberglass and foam, then adds carbon fibers surgically, precisely in the highest load areas, the main beams, the mast bulkhead, the chain plates, the compression zones. This gives the boat most of the stiffness and strength of a full carbon yacht for a fraction of the cost, keeping it light, strong, and attainable all at once. And then there is the famous Balance signature, the Versa helm, a helm station that pivots through 90 degrees into 4 locked positions. You can steer from up high with a perfect view of the sails in good weather, or fold it down into the protected cockpit, sealed behind sliding windows, to steer in warmth and safety through a 40-knot gale. The larger boats in the range, the 526 and the magnificent 580, scale this philosophy up, the 526 famously eating 260-mile days and still pointing within 35 degrees of the wind, and the flagship 580 carrying a towering carbon rig yet displacing only around 16 tons, all while remaining genuinely manageable for a couple, with every line led back to that single protected helm station. The Balance 482 takes the number 2 spot because it gets the fundamental compromise more right than almost any boat ever built. Strong, fast, safe, comfortable, and within reach. And the number 1 catamaran, built like a tank that still sails like a dream. The Garcia Explocat 52. For the top spot, we have a boat that is quite literally built from a different material than everything else on this list. While every other boat here is built from fiberglass or carbon, the Garcia Explocat 52 is built from marine-grade aluminum, and that single choice makes it arguably the toughest production catamaran on the planet. Here is why aluminum is so extraordinary for an ocean boat. When fiberglass or carbon strikes something hard, a rock, a shipping container, a chunk of ice, it cracks, it shatters, it can delaminate and let the ocean in. Aluminum does something completely different. It deforms, it bends, it dents, it absorbs the brutal energy of the impact by deforming, soaking up the force the way a crumple zone protects a car, but it does not break and it does not let go. A composite hull either survives an impact intact or fails catastrophically, with very little in between. But aluminum gives you that priceless middle ground, damaged but still floating, dented but still watertight, able to carry you to safety even after a collision that would end the voyage of almost any other boat. The watertight envelope of the boat stays intact, even after a collision that would hole and sink a composite hull. And Garcia does not build this hull thin. The aluminum plating starts at 5 millimeters and progressively thickens to 8, 10, 12, and a reassuring 14 millimeters at the very bottom of the hulls, where a grounding would strike. The fixed keels are welded directly to the hull, deeper than the rudders, so they take any impact first and protect the steering. The structural bulkheads are welded straight into the hull and deck, creating a single, monolithic, virtually indestructible cage. The whole boat is wrapped in 74 millimeters of foam insulation, so it stays warm in the Arctic and cool in the tropics, and a watertight door leads to a forward cockpit you can use as a sheltered lookout while threading through ice. This is a boat built to push through floating ice in the Northwest Passage, a route so demanding that Garcia's exploration boats have actually completed it, to dry out safely on a falling tide, to venture to the polar regions and the most remote anchorages on Earth where no rescue is coming and the boat itself is your only lifeline. And here is the miracle. Despite all that armor, the Garcia is no slow, lumbering tank. With a powerful rig and beautifully designed hulls, it routinely knocks out 250-mile days and reaches into the low teens of knots, while its pivoting helm lets the crew steer from a protected position through the worst weather imaginable. It is truly a 4x4 for the oceans, a boat that can take you anywhere on the planet, through anything the planet can throw at you, and bring you safely home. The Garcia Explocat 52 is number 1 because it is the purest expression of this entire list's dream, a boat built like an absolute tank that still sails like a proper ocean greyhound. So there you have it, the 10 catamarans that finally shattered the oldest compromise in sailing. From the rational, rugged St. Francis to the spine-reinforced Privilege to the resilient Exquisite, to the disciplined Katana, to the fast and clever Outrimers, to the carbon thoroughbreds from Kinetic and HH, to the perfectly balanced Balance, and finally to the indestructible aluminum Garcia. 10 very different boats, 10 very different philosophies, but every single one of them sharing the same rare and beautiful quality. They are built strong enough to survive the worst the ocean can do, the collisions, the groundings, the storms, the towering breaking seas, and they are still fast and able enough to outrun weather, to cover huge distances, and to be a genuine, pure joy to sail. For most of history, you had to choose between a boat that would keep you safe and a boat that would thrill you. These 10 boats prove beyond any doubt that you no longer have to choose at all. You really can have a boat built like a tank that sails like it was born to run. Fair winds, and may you always sail something strong enough to bring you home.